The air in the hospital room was frigid. The only sounds were the steady beeps from the machines. Billionaire Jonathan Anuka lay still in the bed, tubes snaking from his frail body, an oxygen mask covering his face. His skin was pale, lifeless. Outside the door, doctors murmured among themselves, their tones low and heavy with hopelessness. Then, something unexpected happened. A soft voice broke through the silence. It didn't belong to a nurse or a family member. It was a child. A girl of about 10 stood beside the dying billionaire. Barefoot, her thin frame was wrapped in a tattered, mud-stained ash-colored dress. Her thick, uncombed hair framed a face far too weary for her age. She looked like she hadn't eaten in days. But when she began to sing, her voice was like nothing anyone had heard before. No instruments, no background music, just her voice, rising softly, like a breeze wrapped in prayer. It floated gently through the sterile air, pressing into every corner of the room. Jonathan's finger twitched. Then his hand moved. A nurse at the door gasped aloud. The same doctor who had all but given up stepped closer. Then, the billionaire coughed. His eyelids flickered open. The man who had been unresponsive for weeks, who had shown no sign of life, was awake. And he was staring at her. 3 days earlier, 10-year-old Olivia was racing through the messy lanes of a rundown market, her tiny feet dodging puddles and garbage. A sack of tomatoes rested on her head as she weaved through the crowd. Her face was slick with sweat under the blistering Lagos sun, but she didn't complain. She couldn't. Life had demanded toughness from her since she was 8. 2 years ago, everything changed. Her parents were killed in a horrific car accident, the kind that made news headlines. Everyone said it was a miracle she survived. The vehicle was crushed, twisted like paper, but Olivia didn't have a single cut. But instead of being seen as a blessing, she was feared. A witch, Aunt Monica had muttered coldly at the funeral, folding her arms and refusing to even look at the child. She killed her parents. How does a child walk away from a wreck like that without bleeding? That was the last day anyone from her family touched her. She was abandoned, tossed aside like she didn't matter. With no one to care for her, Olivia dropped out of school. She lived on the streets, surviving by carrying heavy loads for customers in the market in exchange for a few coins, just enough for a small plate of rice and a sachet of water. But there was one thing no one could take from her. Her voice. Each night, while the world slept, Olivia sang. Under the bridge where she shared space with other homeless children, her songs became her escape, a way to feel her parents again, to chase away the whispers that haunted her. Sometimes, strangers would stop to listen. One woman once cried and told her, "Your voice touches something I didn't know was still alive in me." Olivia clung to that. One night, she had a dream. In it, she was singing beside a dying man. Her song brought him back to life. In the dream, he smiled, touched her head, and said, "You are more powerful than you realize." She never forgot it. Maybe that dream was what led her to the August Modern Hospital that Wednesday morning. She hadn't eaten since the night before and had gone there hoping someone kind at the gate might spare some money, enough for bread. But as she got close to the reception area, she overheard 2 people speaking. A woman whispered to a man in scrubs, "They say he won't last the day." "It's like he's given up already," the man replied grimly. "Depression kills faster than illness. He lost his wife and daughter. Stop trying to live." "Who is it?" Olivia asked gently, stepping into view. The woman turned, surprised. "What are you doing here?" "I came to beg, Ma," Olivia replied honestly. "But I heard what you said about the man." The man raised an eyebrow. "What about him?" "I can help," Olivia said plainly. They both stared at her. The man chuckled, looking back at his clipboard. "How exactly?" the woman asked, her curiosity piqued. "I'll sing for him," Olivia replied. "If he's lost in sadness, my song might find him." The man burst into laughter. This one? In torn clothes and bare feet? But the woman didn't laugh. She looked closer, something in the girl's eyes pulling her in. She wasn't joking. It can't hurt, the woman said at last. Madam, please, the man began. It costs us nothing, she interrupted. And just maybe. And so Olivia was led down the white-tiled corridors of the hospital, past glass walls and hushed whispers. Nurses stared. People pointed. Who is that street child? What's she doing here? They brought her into a private ward, quiet and sealed. There lay Jonathan Anuka, one of Nigeria's wealthiest, most reclusive men. He hadn't opened his eyes in 2 weeks. No visitors allowed. No food accepted. No responses given. Since the fiery crash that took his wife and child, he had withered. Even his money, his resources, none of it could save him. His lawyers had already drawn up the will. He was done fighting. And now, a barefoot orphan stood beside him. Her hand reached out, fingers brushing the cold metal of the hospital bed. Then she closed her eyes, and began to sing. What happened next was nothing short of a miracle. Her voice began as a hum, low and steady, like dawn quietly stretching across the sky. Olivia kept her eyes closed, her lips parting gently, letting the melody rise. Each note seemed soaked in warmth, as if sunlight had slipped into the room through her song. Something in the air shifted. What had once been a room filled with sorrow and silence now felt strangely alive. The female doctor near the door froze. The male nurse, the same one who had laughed at her, found himself walking forward without realizing it. Then, Jonathan's fingers twitched. "Did you see that?" the doctor whispered. "Probably just a spasm," the nurse said, though his voice betrayed his doubt. But Olivia kept singing. Her voice floated gently, tender as breath, laced with quiet strength. Even if the sun forgets to rise, a fire still burns inside your soul. Don't go where I can't follow. Come back. Come home. Suddenly, a rasping cough shattered the stillness. Everyone jumped. Jonathan's chest rose and fell. His eyelids fluttered. One finger curled inward, slow, uncertain, but deliberate. "Mr. Jonathan," the doctor gasped, racing forward with her stethoscope. "He's stabilizing. His pulse is stronger. My God." The nurse sprinted from the room to alert the other staff. Still, Olivia didn't stop singing. Her voice, soaked in something no one could name but everyone could feel, love, hope, maybe something divine, poured through the room like light. And as she moved into the third verse, Jonathan's eyes finally opened. He blinked, adjusting to the bright light above him. For a moment, he looked lost, like a man waking from a deep, endless sleep. Then his gaze shifted. And he saw her. The barefoot girl with wild curls and soulful eyes. He said nothing. He didn't have to. Tears welled in the corners of his eyes. And Olivia, still singing, offered the gentlest smile. It was the first time anyone had smiled at him without pity in 2 long years. By morning, word had spread like wildfire throughout the hospital. The billionaire is awake. They say a street girl healed him. A miracle child. Doctors were stunned. Nurses whispered among themselves. Journalists began to gather outside the hospital, eager to uncover the truth. But only a handful knew what really happened in that quiet room. Olivia had been given her own bed that night, a real one. Soft sheets, a pillow, a warm blanket. The hospital director ordered that she be fed 3 full meals a day. They even gave her a clean gown. But Olivia didn't ask for much. Only one thing. "Can I sing for him again?" she asked. And so, for the next 2 days, Olivia returned to Jonathan's room each morning and evening. She didn't talk much. She would simply sit by his side, hold his hand, and sing. Sometimes, he would sleep peacefully. Other times, he would keep his eyes open, watching her like her voice reminded him of something long buried, something he needed to remember. On the third morning, he spoke. It was faint, hoarse, but unmistakable. "I don't know who you are," he murmured, "but your voice, it found me." Olivia's eyes widened. "You're awake." A tired smile tugged at his lips. "I'm not dead, am I?" She shook her head. "No, sir. I didn't let you die." "Why?" "Because I still need you. Someone still needs you in this world." Jonathan shut his eyes. Tears escaped once more. And for the first time in years, he wanted to live. Across town, the rumor mill churned. In the same shoddy market where Olivia had once carried yams for a few naira, people whispered, "You hear? That girl? The one who worked for Madame Cafayet? They say she healed a billionaire with her voice." Some laughed. Others believed. But none of her so-called relatives knew the truth. Yet. Back at the hospital, the top-level staff gathered in a private meeting. The hospital director, the female doctor, and Jonathan's personal lawyer sat around a table. "She has no relatives. No school record. She's been living under a bridge," the doctor explained. Jonathan, now sitting upright in his bed, stared silently out the window. "And still," he said softly, "she gave me more life than any machine, any medicine ever did." The lawyer leaned forward. "Are you thinking what I think you're thinking?" Jonathan nodded slowly. "She saved me. Now it's my turn to save her." But as the mood in the hospital turned hopeful, a storm was brewing. A knock echoed at Olivia's hospital room door. A nurse opened it, only to be met by a woman in bright-colored wrappers, thick makeup, and eyes full of suspicion. "Where's that girl?" she demanded rudely. "Olivia. Her name is Olivia. I'm her aunt," the woman declared. "I've come to take her home." The nurse narrowed her eyes. "And you are?" "I'm her blood. Her only family. I want to see her. Now." Behind the curtain, Olivia heard everything. Her body tensed. She knew that voice. It was Aunt Monica. The same woman who had called her cursed. Who spat on her at the funeral. The same woman who left her standing alone by her parents' graves. She was here. Olivia's breath quickened. Her hands began to shake. She had survived cold nights, hunger, strangers' cruelty. But nothing ever hurt like Monica's voice. That venom was back. "She's my niece," Monica yelled. "I've been searching for her for years." The nurse frowned. "She's recovering. She just helped a patient recover. We don't allow visitors without clearance." "Clearance?" Monica scoffed. "I'm her family." Behind the curtain, Olivia clutched the edge of her sheet. Her knees felt weak. She was reliving every wound. And then, the door opened wider. A tall man in a sleek black kaftan stepped in. He didn't speak loudly. He didn't have to. It was Jonathan. Jonathan no longer looked like the man barely clinging to life. He stood upright, composed, his eyes sharp and steady. The machines that once kept him alive had been removed. Strength had returned to his frame. "Excuse me," he said calmly, facing Monica. "You say you're this girl's relative?" Monica's expression shifted instantly. Recognition widened her eyes. "Ah! Chief Jonathan. God is good. You're healed. Praise be." He didn't return her smile. "And who did you say you were?" he asked again. "I'm Olivia's auntie," she replied quickly, voice softening. "Her only family. I came as soon as I heard. I've been so worried." Jonathan stared at her. His tone remained calm, but his words carried weight. "And where have you been for the past 2 years?" Monica blinked. "Ah, We didn't know where she was. He interrupted. That's funny. Because the girl who saved my life told me her family abandoned her. That they called her names. That they left her to suffer. Do you know anything about that? Monica's mouth opened, then closed. Chief, sir, children, they can say wild things when they're in pain. Before she could continue, a small, firm voice spoke from behind the curtain. She's lying. Everyone turned. Olivia stepped out, her expression quiet but resolute. Gone was the barefoot market child. Now she stood in a clean gown, hair neatly brushed, eyes filled with something powerful. You called me a witch, she said clearly. You told people I killed my parents. Monica's face twisted. Olivia, I was grieving. We all were. I didn't mean. You meant every word, Olivia replied, her voice steady. Silence wrapped the room. Then Jonathan spoke again, his tone firmer. Leave this hospital. Now. 2 security guards appeared at the doorway. They didn't wait for Monica to argue. She was escorted out gently but without delay. Her voice echoed in the hallway behind her. You'll regret this, Olivia. Blood is blood. He'll use you and dump you. Olivia didn't move. She didn't cry. When Jonathan placed his hand on her shoulder, she didn't pull away. You're safe now, he said softly. That night, Jonathan invited Olivia to his private hospital suite, a warm, quiet lounge filled with books and soft jazz music playing in the background. She sat curled on a soft chair, holding a warm cup of milk. He watched her, his eyes thoughtful. Olivia, he said gently. Tell me something. Why did you sing for me? She thought for a moment. Because I saw myself in you. I know what it feels like to want to give up. His throat tightened. She continued. I had a dream once. A man was dying. I sang, and he came back. I knew it wasn't just a dream. I believed it was real. Jonathan nodded slowly. It was real, he said. You didn't just save my life. You healed my spirit. They sat together in silence. Then he asked, if you could be anything in the world, what would you be? Her eyes lit up, truly lit up, for the first time in years. I want to fly, she said. Not just sing. I want to be a pilot. I want to see the skies my parents never got to see. Jonathan looked at her as though she were the answer to a question he never thought to ask. Then I'll make it happen. By sunrise the next day, the paperwork was completed. Jonathan made it official. He adopted Olivia. He made a public statement that stunned the country. The girl who saved me is now my daughter. She gave me back my life. Now I'm giving her hers. The internet exploded. She's a miracle. From street child to billionaire heiress. Olivia the angel. But as Olivia moved into Jonathan's Banana Island mansion, began school, and started her training as a future pilot, not everyone was celebrating. Far away, in a dimly lit compound, a bitter man watched the news unfold. Uncle Benedict. Jonathan's estranged cousin. He sat with narrowed eyes, sipping his palm wine slowly. So, the old man gave everything to a street girl, he muttered. His assistant remained silent. Benedict sneered. We'll see how long this miracle lasts. He picked up his phone. Somewhere in Lagos, a sinister plan began to form. For the first time in her life, Olivia had a door she could lock. A bed that smelled like lavender. A ceiling covered in glow-in-the-dark stars. Each night, she lay in bed, staring up at them, reminding herself it wasn't a dream. Each morning, she awoke in the Banana Island mansion, wrapped in clean sheets, bathed in sunshine. She no longer dodged raindrops under bridges. She didn't carry crates through filthy markets. She didn't beg for leftovers. She was Olivia Nduka now, adopted daughter of billionaire CEO Jonathan Nduka. But more than that, she was already flying training simulators with adult precision. Her voice, still tender and haunting, now reached thousands. Jonathan helped her create an online platform called Sing to Heal, a space where those battling depression could listen, cry, and begin to heal through music. She had hope. She had purpose. She had family. But just as the skies seemed brightest, the storm clouds returned and it began with something small. One evening, while Olivia was reading in her room, a maid brought her a plate of jollof rice. She was about to take the first spoonful when her nose wrinkled. Something was off. The smell was sharp, unnatural. Her stomach tightened. She set the spoon down carefully and called for the chef. "Mr. Ibrahim," she called. He rushed in, concerned. One sniff and his face darkened. "Madam Olivia," he said firmly. "No touch this food. Something day inside." The plate was immediately sent to the family doctor. Tests came back fast. Traces of rat poison. The household was stunned. Jonathan was furious. He called every member of the staff into the living room. "Who handled this food before it reached her?" he demanded. No one answered. The kitchen's CCTV had been disabled. The maid who delivered the food? Gone. Resigned and disappeared that same night. The next morning, Olivia's hands trembled. For the first time since her adoption, she didn't sing. Meanwhile, across town in a dusty compound in Ischia, Uncle Benedict leaned back in his plastic chair, sipping his wine. His phone buzzed. He answered with a grin. "Did it reach her?" he asked. The voice on the line hesitated. "No, sir. Something went wrong. She didn't eat it." The grin vanished. Benedict slammed his glass down. "Then make sure the next one works. That girl's standing in the way of everything. That fortune should be mine." For years, Benedict had been waiting for Jonathan's collapse. He watched his cousin waste away after losing his family. He assumed the empire would fall to him. He'd been ready to claim it all. But now, some street girl had swooped in and taken everything. His cousin's name. His wealth. His future. And she wore his late daughter's clothes, lived in his mansion, sat beside his bed. No. He wouldn't let that stand. Soon after, more strange things began to happen. Olivia's flight simulator access was suspended without warning. Her favorite stuffed bear, the one Jonathan gave her, was found torn down the middle. Her most precious childhood photographs, the ones she kept hidden in a drawer, were found soaked in water. It was too much to be coincidence. Jonathan noticed her change. She smiled less. Stopped humming in the hallway. One night, he sat beside her bed. "Olivia," he asked softly. "What's going on?" She looked at him, her eyes tired. "I think someone's trying to hurt me." He nodded slowly. "I know." She froze. "You do?" "I've received 2 anonymous threats this week," he said quietly. "First, they warned me to send you back to the streets. Then they said, next time it won't just be rice." "Who?" she whispered. He clenched his jaw. "I have a guess. And if I'm right, he's just getting started." The very next day, disaster struck. Jonathan collapsed during a company board meeting. He was rushed back to the ICU. News broke within hours. Billionaire CEO suffers another health crisis. Is this the end for Jonathan Nduka? Olivia stayed by his side, holding his hand, praying. She sang. She cried. But unlike before, Jonathan didn't wake up. And during that chaos, Benedict made his move. Back at the mansion, a group of lawyers arrived without warning. They held a document, a revised will supposedly signed by Jonathan just weeks before. In it, Benedict was named trustee over the entire fortune, until Olivia turned 21. All financial decisions, all company shares, all estate responsibilities, would be under Benedict's control. The household staff were stunned. The family doctor called it bluff. But the papers looked authentic. Suddenly, Olivia, once the beloved daughter of the house, was a powerless teenager living under the control of a man who hated her. That night, Benedict arrived with his suitcases. "Your daddy's weak again," he sneered, stepping into the hallway. "And until he's gone, this house belongs to me." Olivia stood silently. Her sanctuary no longer felt safe. And for the first time, she wondered. Would her voice be enough this time? The mansion changed overnight. The warmth it once held vanished. The halls felt colder. Tighter. Like a trap. Benedict strutted through the corridors like a king reclaiming his kingdom. He barked orders at staff. Reassigned rooms. He even took down the family portrait where Olivia had stood proudly between Jonathan and his late wife's painting. "This house needs cleansing," he muttered mockingly. "Too much fake energy." Olivia said nothing. She had learned the power of silence. But deep inside her, something stronger than fear began to rise. It was fire. Jonathan remained in a coma. Doctors did their best, but his condition worsened. His blood pressure spiked. His breathing grew shallow. Still, Olivia visited daily. She held his hand. But this time, she couldn't sing. Something inside her was broken. "What if I lose him too?" she whispered one night. "What if I can't bring him back this time?" She felt like the abandoned girl at the graveside all over again. Alone. That night, her instincts returned. The ones she had sharpened on the street. She wandered quietly down the corridor, toward the guest wing. Benedict's room. Light spilled from under the door. Voices. She crept closer. Inside, she heard him on the phone. "When he dies, it's all mine," Benedict said smugly. "The new will's in place. The girl? I'll toss her back to the streets. I don't care how we do it. Just make sure Jonathan doesn't wake up." Olivia's stomach dropped. Everything made sense now, the threats, the food, the forged will. It was never about her. It was always about the money. She didn't run. Not this time. She had heard enough. And she was ready to fight. By morning, the mansion was stirring with movement. Olivia stepped into the grand hallway dressed in a crisp white gown. Her hair was neatly pulled back, and her eyes held something fierce, not fear, but purpose. In her hand, she held a small voice recorder. Behind her stood Mr. Okoye, the family lawyer, and a uniformed police officer. "Uncle Benedict," she said, her voice calm and clear. "It's over." He looked up from the dining table, confused. "What are you babbling about now?" She pressed the play button. From the tiny speaker, his voice filled the room. "When he dies, everything is mine. I don't care what it takes. Jonathan must not wake up." Silence dropped like a stone. The staff froze. Mr. Okoye's jaw fell open. The police officer stepped forward. "Mr. Benedict Nduka, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted poisoning, and document forgery." "No. No, this is all lies." Benedict shouted, jumping to his feet. "She set me up." But it was too late. Handcuffs clicked around his wrists. He was dragged out, protesting all the way. "You'll regret this, girl. That man will never wake up." The front doors slammed shut behind him. And for the first time in weeks, Olivia breathed. The nightmare was ending. But one final hope remained. That evening, Olivia returned to the hospital. Jonathan lay motionless. Machines beeped steadily. The doctors had said if he didn't wake up in the next 48 hours, he likely never would. She pulled up a chair and sat by his side. Her small fingers reached for his. Then, for the first time in days, she began to sing. Her voice had changed. It was stronger now. Brighter. Like sunlight after weeks of rain. You gave me a name when I had none. You gave me a home when I was cold. Don't go where I can't follow. There are still skies to fly, still songs to sing. Her words floated through the room like healing rain. Then, just like before, his fingers twitched. His chest lifted, deeper than before. His eyelids fluttered. And then, he whispered her name. Olivia. Tears streamed down her cheeks. You came back to me, he said, voice barely audible. I never left, she whispered, clutching his hand tightly. Weeks later, headlines took over every screen in the country. Jonathan Nduka wakes from coma after daughter's song. Benedict Nduka sentenced to 18 years for forgery and conspiracy. Miracle Girl becomes Nigeria's youngest licensed pilot at 17. Olivia didn't just return to school, she soared through it. Literally. At age 17, she became a certified pilot. She launched the Sing to Heal Center, where trained vocalists sang for people battling depression and grief. It became a movement, music as medicine. And it brought hope to hundreds. During one of her hospital charity visits, she met Dr. Johnson, a young medical professional who didn't care about her fame, only her heart. They fell in love. They married. Together, they had twin boys, Jerry and Joshua. And in that same Banana Island mansion where sorrow once roamed the halls, joy now echoed. Jonathan never let her move out. You're my daughter, he said firmly. This will always be your home. And it was. Every night, Olivia tucked her sons into bed beneath the same glowing stars that once gave her hope as a lonely child. She would kiss their foreheads, whisper a melody, and remind them. Miracles aren't just things that happen. Sometimes, miracles are people. And she was one of them.